Today we are hiking out to Japan's most extreme onsen. And this is up in the area of Fukushima, not too far from Aizu Wakamatsu area. And this particular onsen is one that I have never been out to before. I caught word of it some time ago, and just the title, Japan's most extreme onsen, really caught my attention. Now, we've got a Japanese killer hornet over here, one of those orange ones. And as we go, I might need to collect a stick because there are spider webs all throughout this. But this onsen that we're hiking out to today is actually kind of a natural onsen, and the sulfur concentration is apparently incredibly high. So we need to be careful of a few things. First off, right now we're starting at about 1,200 meters altitude, and we're going to be climbing somewhere around 200 meters additionally before going down into the onsen area. But on the drive up here, came across a bear. Now, it was actually really exciting this time because A, I was inside of a car, and B, it was just a tiny little baby bear. And when I say tiny little baby bear, I mean the whole body would have fit in the space of one of these stairs here. He just sprinted across the road. Now, obviously, where there's a baby, there's usually a mother nearby. And so, kept the car going and made our way up here. But these mountains do have bears. And because we're at the beginning of summer as I record this, we are right in their active season. Now, coming up this high, because there's such a strong concentration of sulfur, there's not really much drinkable water up here for the bears. So hopefully we should be okay. In this area, the bears tend to hang out a little lower in the mountains so that they have access to, well, the drinkable water, etc. But just in case, I actually have a guide with me today who knows the area, has briefed me, and is gonna kind of keep me safe. And so we've got a little bit of a viewpoint here. So we're gonna come over here, and okay, we can see a waterfall off there in the distance. I don't know if you guys can see that, but apparently that waterfall is actually a waterfall of onsen or hot spring water. So it's just onsen. That's our new word. That's what we're going to call it. We're going to continue on up this way. We just came from down here, so we're going to come up here. Now, I definitely recommend hiking boots for a trek like this, as well, you can tell by looking at the ground, but it's pretty easy to lose your footing. Mind you, a lot of this area does have stairs as well, so we'll follow those and take kind of the nice relaxing path and just enjoy the nice Japanese forest walk. Now, Japan does have several of these kind of in nature onsen, if you will, where it's just a public bathable area out in the middle of nature. One of my favorites that I ever came across, I think I fit it into a camping video on the main channel a few years back, and it's called Shiojiri Onsen. Now that one is out near the area of Nagano, and quite literally translates into butt-burning onsen, shiojiri, or shiriyaki. I mix shiojiri with shiriyaki. I was like, that doesn't make sense. Doesn't help that it's like 6:30 in the morning right now, and my brain is everything but awake. But the shiriyaki onsen area is also really nice, but I went out expecting something not too dissimilar from this, and ended up in this onsen area that actually had a huge number of middle-aged men just hanging out and taking a bath. And I also love how they built these viewpoints here where you can just stop and take a look out at the waterfall. This is quite nice. You really can't see much on the other side, but the view of the waterfall there is just spectacular. So, as we do this, because we are starting at a high altitude, we came from down there. We're actually basically starting up partway up a mountain, partway up close to the top even. During the winter months, this area is filled with ski hills. And so they like to utilize the summer months for interesting nature activities. And this is definitely on that list. The whole area around this part of Fukushima and Aizu Wakamatsu is filled with interesting and unique places. Here on this channel, I had done a video back in the winter of me coming out and exploring the area, and fell in love with it, and felt I just absolutely have to come back during the summer months to experience all this. In fact, last night I went on a night nature tour where I got to drive a golf cart through nature and check out areas of bear sightings and different lizards swimming in ponds and all of this other stuff. It was just fantastic. But because we're starting so high, you definitely want to take your time because you're already at a bit of altitude. And so I'm trying to focus a little more on my breathing so we don't get to the top and feel completely exhausted. But it is a really, really nice walk. It reminds me a little bit of this year's adventure in the Nagano area, where we found the temple that was hidden up alongside the mountain, built alongside of the mountain. And we also got a little lucky by having a bit of cloud cover today. Had this been a bright, sunny, hot day, it would have been a very difficult walk. I would say right now, as I'm walking this, it's somewhere around 32 degrees, but there is a nice breeze. Now, my guide, who has opted not to be on camera today, but has very, very kindly briefed me in the area, is also carrying a gas monitor so that as we go, if the gases get too strong or too dangerous, we can kind of make our way out of that area. But one of the other reasons we don't have the guide on camera with us is because as I walk forward and manage everything in front of us, our guide is keeping an eye behind us so that we don't have any bears or boars coming up and sneaking up on us from behind. You see, while the bears will tend to go for a more natural water source, so they may stay a bit lower on the mountain, this area will still have a ton of boar. And so as we go, we need to try and keep our eyes out for any of these potentially dangerous animals. We recently visited a abandoned village and found a boar that had fallen through the floor of one of the houses, got stuck, and just perished there. And boars in Japan can get big. I would say the boar we found on the floor was probably around the size of the baby bear that we saw run through. But I also just love this hike. I love that we're going through this narrow tunnel of trees. And you get the Hokikyo in the background. Whew. It feels like we've done at least our 200-meter climb. And as you can see, we're kind of closer to the top of this section of the mountain here. But there's still higher even up there. But we get a little bit of a climbing break and get to adjust to the altitude a bit. Years ago, I had climbed, many years ago actually, before starting the channel, I'd climbed Mount Fuji. Climbed it with a friend who was determined just to focus on his breathing. And this is a very Japanese thing. People will drop something, and the people who find it will often try to put it in the most recognizable, noticeable, or easy to find position. So if you're walking and you find like a scarf or something like that on the ground, many people will put it as close to the position it was dropped, high enough up that someone will be able to notice it. And you can tell, like, those are Onsen style mountains out there in the background for sure. And we're getting a gorgeous view here of the mountain range and the area. If I ever stop loving the mountains, especially the mountains of Japan, something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. But my friend who focused on his breathing, when we got to the top of Mount Fuji, was completely fine. He just focused on solid breaths in, solid breaths out, consistent timing, making sure that his muscles were getting enough oxygen, and didn't really chat as much as the rest of us on that trip. He just focused on breathing for something like 9 hours straight on the climb. And we've got rope right here to make sure that we don't cross too far over, because down here you would literally just fall. But again, we have a bit of a view of the waterfall. The word we're looking for is waterfall. And so the importance of breathing properly when you're doing climbs like this cannot be overstated. Just making sure that you take your time, you get enough oxygen, and you get enough hydration. When I had done the Nakasendo walk, I had started with 2 liters of water with me and went through the entire thing in the very first part of the climb, or I guess the walk, and ran out of water incredibly quickly. It was something like 36 degrees Celsius that day, so if you're in Fahrenheit, maybe Google that. It was hot, and it was just pure sun beating down on us. And when I got about halfway through the walk, I had already gotten through all of my water, and the water search became a very, very real struggle. But considering how hot it is today, again, very grateful for the cloud cover and really looking forward just to getting into a natural onsen. Now, here as well, if you look really carefully, the camera doesn't always show depth, but you can fall off of this side and you can fall off of that side. They're actually much, like I'm looking at the camera right now and it's much steeper than it looks on camera. So we've got to focus and walk forward because there are little areas like this where just the wrong footing on your hike could lead to a very, very bad day. But for anybody who commonly does hikes, you know, I recently spoke to a gentleman who has spent a great deal of his life as a monk, and he was saying how these lifestyles dedicated to something like being a monk are not all that different from a lifestyle that is dedicated to something like a specific hobby that has a challenge behind it. Something like hiking or a sport like golf, for example, where it's always that chase, for example, with golf of perfection. You'll never get a perfect golf score. You're not going to get a score of 18, all holes in ones. It's always about improving the process along the way. And he said each person attaches to a different part of this as they choose their struggle. And in this, that we accept that this is really what life is. Life is struggle. And the more we choose to do things that engage us in some form of struggle, the more we build some form of emotional or mental resilience in different situations. So what I wanted to ask is, for those of you watching, what is the struggle that you choose? Like for me, I love coming out and doing walks and hikes and long adventures and road trips. Not because they're super fun and easy, but because they come with a certain amount of struggle to them. They come with a certain amount of hard work. Now, a hike like this we've got a beautiful path to walk through. It is not a difficult hike. At the most, we're going up about 200-300 meters in our climb. And we're not at such altitude that we're going to get altitude sickness. But as we do it, we're just watching our footing, focusing on what we're doing, taking in the area, and sharing with you guys adds this edge of challenge that I really enjoy. But it's also something that long before I started the Tokyo Lens Explore channel, I used to do quite often. Just come out and do walks and hikes, sometimes cross an entire city. I used to have like a yearly city cross of Tokyo where I would walk from either the top to the bottom or from one edge to another edge of the city. I've done the Yamanote line walk. I think the first time I did it was in 2007, and I broke it up over 2 days and walked half of the Yamanote line in each day. And for me, during that time, it was about the discovery. I didn't know the city, and I got to discover so many new and interesting things. But I do know the city now, and I still do these things, and I still do find new interesting things. Morning English brain. But for those of you who come out, and many people will do the same hike again and again and again, even if it was a hike that was incredibly difficult for them, or even mundane, they'll often repeat the same hike. Sometimes out of convenience, it's just a hike they can get to. Maybe it's an area they like. But whether it be hiking or any other kind of pastime that engages you in some form of struggle, what is it for you? You know, my grandmother, who would originally watch my YouTube videos, loved knitting. And I remember having a conversation with her once about how I thought she did knitting because it was an easy task and it was very repetitive, right? Almost meditative in its own way. And she shared the fun isn't in the repetition. The repetition is a break from the challenges of catching a mistake you've made and having to backtrack, or figuring out how to connect this piece to this piece in a way that doesn't stand out, or figuring out how to fix this, that, or the next thing. And that kind of stuck with me and bounced back to me when I had that recent conversation with the monk. So whether it be something that's physically challenging, or whether it's something that kind of keeps your hands and minds busy, what is it for you? And I know that not everybody can come out and do walks like this, whether you're in your own country and you can't do them, or whether you just don't think you'll be able to make it to Japan anytime soon, or even at all. It's one of the reasons why originally the goal was just to share as many city, temple, hidden spot, abandoned village walks as possible. But after seeing you guys in the comments and hearing your responses to these walks that we're doing, I really fell in love with it, in the same way that we used to avoid live streaming in the rain under any condition whatsoever. And now it's something that I absolutely love doing with you guys, because you chimed in the comment and said, love those rainy day vibes and just the feel of the video and the sound of the rain and hitting the umbrella. And it gives me a little more insight into that. Kind of reminds me of what it's like to be outside of the situation. You see, I've been in Japan now for so long, well over a decade and a half, and I never ever got a duck here, never ever wanted to become normal to me. And this area here is heavily buggy. There's a lot of bugs in here, and I'm crouched over in an L format to get through here, as all of the trees are so low. But between me and the guide, we are watching on both sides right now, because this is the kind of area where it's kind of plateaued, has more open spaces, where you're likely to come across something like a boar. And while we're not so close to the source of the onsen that this sulfur has become overwhelming yet, again, hopefully it's got us somewhat safe from bears. But because of you guys chiming in and sharing your thoughts and reactions, we gotta watch our step right here, because that's a pretty much guaranteed slip right there. Give me a second to try and get around it. There we go. It's really given me the opportunity to take in these moments. Like a hike like this, if I was doing it entirely by myself, I might just kind of zip through it. Take a little less time to look around, a little less time to appreciate it. But as I share it with you, I get to take a look around and think, you know, what does this look like to somebody who isn't here right now? What does this sound like to somebody who isn't here right now? And I try to pick up the things that really stand out and would be interesting if you're stuck at home, for example. And today, all you wanted to do was get out, and you couldn't do that. So you decided to join in on this. And so I do want to give huge appreciation to all of you who've taken the time to not only watch these, but share your thoughts and what you enjoyed and your experiences along the way. Because despite the two channels at the size they are, I still read everything you write, and I really, really enjoy it. Over the past year or so, the weather's been so up and down in Tokyo that I found myself doing something I didn't do as much before. Taking trains. See, I always cycled, but when you get a hot summer day with 36 to 38 degrees Celsius and 90% humidity, cycling is not as much fun as being in a even slightly crowded, air-conditioned train that doesn't dehydrate you. And so I've come to appreciate these outdoor times and these nature adventures even more, which is why as we've gotten into this season this year, we've gotten to do even more of these than ever. And now we've started to slightly climb once again, and when we reach our next kind of checkpoint, from there we'll head down into the valley that the onsen pools are in, and I'll be able to relax and enjoy a nice onsen bath. You know, one of the most challenging pieces of content that I've done here on Tokyo Lens Explorer was actually the, Tenku no Tori, the Tori Gate in the sky, when we were out in Shikoku. I think that was last year on our 1 million adventure. And we got another area we got to kind of watch our footing. Step up here. And that was actually a much steeper mountain than it showed on the video. Also, at no point in this did I end up grabbing a stick. So if you ever see my hand in the camera, it's because I keep switching hands to clear off spider webs from my face. Ooh. And this is why you want hiking boots, because if I did not have them, I would have just very strongly rolled my ankle. But the high-ankled hiking boots saved us. This is just a fantastic walk, though. There's a few campsites out in Nagano that I love going to solely because I'll do like a early morning or early afternoon walk, not entirely dissimilar to these. This one here, being out in not too far from Aizu, Wakamatsu, in the Fukushima area. A lot of people hear Fukushima and they think, oh, it's the disaster area. But Fukushima is also a very mountainous prefecture. And when you come out as far as an area like this or Kitakata, you're actually closer to the opposite side of Japan, where you have the Sea of Japan and all that, than you are, oh my lord, give me a second, I am absolutely covered in the, oh there we go, we got ourselves a magical wand now. I am covered in spider webs is the word we're looking for. But when you come out as far as like Aizu, Wakamatsu and Koriyama and all that, you're actually getting much, much further away from that area and much closer to the Sea of Japan, the opposite side of Japan. So, oh, this is such a cool tunnel. This feels like Totoro area right here. I wouldn't be overly surprised if Totoro came out or if we saw some Makuro Kurosuke just running through here. I always feel inclined to like wave this as we go, but really just need to keep it up above face level, and that should more than do it. One of the other interesting things that I love about coming this high up in the mountains is you likely can't hear it right now, but I can hear the chimes of the city, the early morning chimes. Another space we gotta watch our steps. I can hear the early morning chimes off in the distance because we are high enough up. There's not really anything blocking the sound. And Norm put the stick down for all of 30 seconds and it's covered in spiderwebs again. You would think I would learn. And yet here we are. This is very low. Like, very, very low. I'm basically just bent over the entire time. The higher we get up, the more, oh Lord, another really low one. The more bugs we're being faced with. And so if you're not a bug person, you're probably glad that it's me doing this walk and not you. There we are. And this time, just for good measure, yes, I've made sure to absolutely cover myself in leech spray so that I don't have to worry about that again, because 3 adventures in a row would be just a little bit too much. Now, a little bit of a minor gentle announcement in this video as we get closer to the onsen, because I can really smell it now, is in February, likely, of 2026. If you're watching this in 2025, I'm going to be spending a week in this area as an open invite for anybody who's either traveling in Japan at that time or for the many of you who live in Japan to come and hang out for a day, 2 days, or more. Basically, going to be hanging out at Nakamura at Hoshino and spending the entire week there. So anybody who wants to come and do meetups and coffee and drinks and tea and all of that, whatever you want to go snowboarding with me, whatever you want, we'll be here for it. And once I have the full event information, I will link it in the description, but we're going to have to watch our step from here. But look at this. Let's just take a brief moment to appreciate. There's actually a mountain hut down there too. It makes sense. When you come out on many of these like longer mountain hike adventures, there often are mountain huts, but let's get down into the onsen area. Step up here and just get a really good look at this. Oh, I love this area. Okay, this is our next challenge down here. We'll try to do it without slipping too much. Going down is always so much more dangerous than going up. Rather than the struggle of the climb, it's fighting gravity and rocks rolling under your feet as you take steps. So we'll take it nice and slow, but you can already see the coloration on the rocks. Oh, that shows you. If you've ever been out to Hakone or any volcanic area really, you'll recognize this. Also, I wanted to keep the screen on for the entire hike this time so that I could really kind of take in what's going on screen. And oh boy, does that eat the battery. So there's a small chance that right before we get there, and there's this moss we have here, that's just an edge down there. If I were to drop the stick, it would go right down. So be very careful. This is still wider than a lot of the paths. When we went out to the abandoned village to meet the hermit who lived there and spend a bit of time living with him, the pathways were almost all on the edge and about half the width of this, but they were all grassy covered. And so I wasn't even able to pull out a camera for probably the first 40 minutes to an hour of that particular hike, because there was just no way. Even attaching a camera to me, most of it was done in the dark. We wouldn't have really seen anything. But so for anybody who wants to come and hang out for a day, 2, or a week. Once I have the information, I will make sure to link it, and we will hopefully have a good time. I'm going to be spending a week at Nakamura, just kind of doing a workation, if you will. And for those of you who can't join, I'm also going to be doing my best to do like virtual meetups and put out content while we're there. So hopefully something for everyone. But as we come down here, you can really start to smell the sulfur gas, and you know we're getting closer. But almost every step, you can feel the risk. And I thought as we got through here, I wouldn't need to worry about my spider stick as much. But the spider webs, they're still getting me. Whew. I can understand why it was recommended for me to... See, on camera, this does not look like that steep or that difficult. It's actually a really nicely, cleanly cleared pathway, really. I've definitely been in hikes that have presented us with more physical challenges, but considering the number of animals in the area, the density of the sulfur gas, and the trickiness of the footing in some of these places, and the fact that obviously when we come out to a spot like this, we don't have any signal. And so it is not the kind of place where you would want to hike out completely on your own and run into any issues, maybe fall and get hurt, because with all this being rock, if you fall and smack your head, you're done. If you don't have somebody with you to get help, then you are out of luck. But at least the path is very clean and nicely determined. So there's always a silver lining, if you will. I keep forgetting about the spider stick. Come on, Norm. Basics. I'm going to stop for 2 seconds just so I can change the battery and tighten my shoes a little bit since we're going downhill. I want to make sure that I've got the proper ankle support. Give me a second. And we are good, and we're almost there as well. Apparently this section of the hike is where things get interesting. We get closer and closer to the onsen and that waterfall we saw before. We're going to be able to get pretty close up to there as well, but we really need to watch our footing in here. So let's stay safe and have fun. But at one point, it seems we should be crossing a bit of a river, and I've even received some advice on the best way to enjoy the onsen. I guess in the pool area, if I take the stick and kind of mix it up, it gets somewhat milky, and apparently that's the best way to go in and enjoy. But you can already tell we're in that onsen zone there, and I don't know how well you can see it, but they've actually got pipes all along here that pull the onsen water down into the town. So let's continue on. We are almost there, and Norm put the stick down for 15 seconds and got another web in the face. You know, when I do these, I'll carry like an umbrella or something, because how often do we get good weather, right? And anytime that I have the umbrella in the shot, people always say it makes it feel like a first-person shooter game, which I really appreciate, because for me, I'm like, I'd rather just get the spider webs in the face. I don't want to have to constantly have this thing in the shot. But I always appreciate the non-stop positivity. And there's a lot of smaller rocks down here, which just like that, if you're not careful of your footing, will roll right under your foot. So we're gonna slow it just a little bit so we can be a little more sure of our footing as we go, because it doesn't really show. It's much steeper than it looks, and that doesn't show. And look at the moss right here. Oh, this is such a treat. For all the times that I've been able to come out to outdoor onsen and do adventures like this, I don't think I've caught such a beautiful area of onsen moss here. And if I'm not mistaken, that's just nice cold fresh water right there. So it's going to be different from the onsen water that we're coming up to. If you look out here, you can actually see these beautiful pink flower buds in the water down there, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. For those of you who are watching on TV in 4K, it's a real treat for you. We're going to come down through here, continually watching our step as we go. The forest section of this I was kind of prepared for. The roly-poly rocky section of this I was not as prepared for, because a lot of these kind of nature onsen hikes will often kind of dump you out just right into the onsen area itself, rather than a space like this where we actually have to climb down. I want to abandon my stick so I can have an open hand. Ooh. Because once again, it feels like this has to be showing on camera a little more, but this is surprisingly steep here. And you can actually, if you look carefully, you can actually see the Japanese Alps out there in the background. It's beautiful. I love being in the middle of summer and still being able to see snow on the mountains off in the background. It just gives you such a sense of scale. And every step is a risk. I kind of love it. It's possible to love things and hate them at the same time, right? There we go. There we are. Oh. Norm's just taking a moment to focus a little more on his footing. We've got some more of the moss down here as well. And it looks like we're going to be going over this plank over here. There we go. We've got the pipes and waterways here carrying the onsen down to the town. And I guess we just carefully step over this, and you can really smell the sulfur. And there's not a ton of wind today, and so since there's not a ton of wind, it really just stays in the air. So we're gonna come down this way, and now you probably can't hear it, but I mentioned how the guide that I brought along has a sensor, like a gas sensor, and she very kindly quickly muted it, but it's been kind of going off here because every breath is just pure sulfur as I go through here. It's actually one of the more challenging. If you've ever, again, like coming back to something like Hakone, if you've ever been to the area of Hakone, you'll know you get up there and You know, especially as you go over the valley, for example, in the cable car, you get a very strong sulfur smell. This has got to be 20 times that. Every breath I'm taking as shallow as possible, because it's all just kind of wafting off of here as well. So every time I want to take a breath, I kind of turn my head to this side, breathe out that way, and try not to get too much of this, because it is fairly easy to make you somewhat nauseous. And we'll watch our step here as we go through. And come down this way. The planks make it really easy for me to kind of follow where I need to be. And come up around here, and we're almost at the onsen area itself. Oh, I'm looking forward to this. Now, for this particular onsen, you're allowed to go in a bathing suit. These more natural outdoor onsen areas, that is completely acceptable. Oh, we're getting the end of our waterfall there. Look at this. Oh wow, guys. Let's give a feel to it. Oh, that is nice and warm too. It's not overly hot, but it is nice and warm, and I believe that's going to be our little onsen pool right there. We'll carefully try to walk across this, hopefully without falling in. Look at that right there. Oh, that is great. Just kind of trying to switch hands here. The color and look of this is just spectacular. And if we walk up this way a little bit, excuse me, battling with the sound of the waterfall here. We get to see it coming down. But I don't want to fall into the waterfall. So we'll come up to here. And just take a nice peek. I really enjoy this. Let me see if I can safely get down without falling. There we are. Now, this is something that if you wanted to book a guide and give a shot yourself, you can. I'll leave that information for you if you want. But for now, I think it's time for me to jump in and enjoy this beautiful onsen water. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again real soon.